Is this thing working? Are we live? It looks like we're live. What's happening, everybody? Everybody's having a fantastic whatever day you're watching this. This is going to be a little bit of a quick show, kind of in the middle of a bunch of stuff. So I wanted to catch up with you guys, see if y'all had anything for me, any questions, what you working on. As far as my stuff is going, Bridgestone S22s have been fed to the Kawaka Z900 RS Cafe with every mod you can do to one of those things and not crack a seal. Couple of things. I got a report. Bike's loving the new tires. It has completely transformed how that bike gets down the road. At full lean, wide open throttle, just absolutely sweet as a nut. Got a little bit overconfident with the bike. Attracted the attention, apparently, of some of our local law enforcement. And if I say some, it means more than one. Anyway, more on that at a later date. Anyway, I loving the bike. Absolutely transformative, though, in terms of the riding experience, which is kind of expected. I say expected. It's normal. You get a bike, you get new tires on it. You're able to actually start to utilize that bike in ways that you weren't able to do before if it came with lousy tires, which the tires that came on that bike stock aren't necessarily bad, but they are not really, they're not really fitted correctly for, it's not really the right tire for the bike. You can have a bike that does really, or you have a tire that is on a bike and it fits it extremely well, but you put that same tire on another bike and it's not necessarily the greatest. The GPR, or the Dunlops, I think GPR 300s, they're really good on lightweight bikes. They're really good on lower power, higher revving motorcycles, stuff that you're not things with big torque and not things that are heavy. You know, those types of machines, that tire is not well suited for. And the problem with the Z900 RS and the regular Z900 too, they're very torquey, fairly low RPM four cylinders, at least for the type of bike that they are anyway, which is to say they hit the tire a little bit harder and quite honestly, they're a little bit heavy for that tire. So, something like a parallel twin 600 would be a good tire for that, but not for a bike like the Z900 or the Z900 RS. So, Sovereign is in, Marco is in, and Noav is in. What's up, fellas? Hope everything is going really well. I really don't have a lot going on, but I did want to touch base with you guys again. Had an impromptu visit from a couple of our local friendlies. Did not quite know I was leading them in a high-speed chase. Whoops on me. Anyway, they were really cool about it, and I basically got an opportunity to meet a couple of enforcement officers. And that's basically how it wound up. But yes, the tires are very good, and the tires are inviting well enough to get into a little bit of trouble. So there's this one spot where I can really get the bike leaned over, get off the bike, and pour the coals onto it. It's a pair of, Marco, looks like that. Is that any better? Oh, that's definitely not any better. Yeah, this camera on this computer kind of sucks. But anyway, so I was discovered to have been really leaning that thing over. Anyway, again, I will save this story for a little bit later date, but good time nonetheless. But aside from all of that, oh, Mark, am I still training the hands? A little bit, yeah. I've got to find a new boxing gym, though. The boxing gym that I was going to shut down. So I'm kind of screwed there. I need to find a local spot. But I still play with the speed bag. Shoulder is doing a whole lot better. I'm still trying to figure out how I messed it up, but it's finally coming back around. But yeah, I just need to find and I haven't really been looking that hard. But I do need to get back into it. Marcus said, I'm trying to move from Canada to Texas. I would do that for sure. Marcus saying, I'll open a gym. Nice. Now I need to get back into it. I need to quit finding myself with all different projects and just get back into it and stick with it. And it sucks too, because I kind of had the key to the place that I was going to. So I could get in there super early in the morning and just get after it, doing the whole cross hook. I'd work on hooks over and over and over again. Movement drills, which I don't know. I kind of miss it, but at the same time, I've got to be smart about it too. I can't get, I got to remember it's a heavy bag, right? And that's where most guys develop really bad habits. So that's why I would videotape myself and I would see myself afterwards. I'm going, oh my God, I would get murked if I did that in an actual, and even just in sparring, I would get lit up. But yeah, just touch, just tap, 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 tap. Body positioning is the big thing for me, making sure that I'm off center line, watching foot placement. That's the main thing. In fact, just again, try not to develop bad habits, setting up. It's just, in fact, I was more into posturing up on defensive stuff on the heavy bag there right before they closed it down. Skip and shadow boxing is very underrated. And it's something it's a lot of guys can't get into it. I'm one of them. It takes a lot for me, but I would do it. They had a mirror. They had a mirror on the right-hand side of the ring that you could watch you could shadow box, but you could also watch form. And the kids that were in there were just crazy impressive with their footwork, with their footwork, body positioning, and range. A lot of the younger kids were really good. At least from where I was standing, it looked good. Anyway, back into you guys. Let's see. Sir, I miss Kung Fu. It's hard to find a competent martial arts place that doesn't cost a buttload. Very true. I know a couple of guys that were big into Kung Fu. It's real martial art. Anything, they feel, well, this style is better. Anything that you are doing, that you are training in, that allows you to have proper weight transfer and proper balance, that's effective. That's all that. And then employing it martially is the other way. You have to test it. And you've got to see leather. You've got to see things coming your way too. You can't just practice. You got to, big proponent, you have to spar. You got to be in there. You've got to see what it looks like in real life type stuff. It's crazy important. And guys, a lot of guys don't like that. That's the other thing. Boxing's gotten a little bit out of favor with a lot of guys because they don't like sparring, and for good reason. Sparring turns into fights for a lot of guys, and it goes both ways. Guys get frustrated and start throwing freaking trying to mollywop the guy, and other guys get picked on too. So you can find yourself in that situation in any boxing gym. I've never really run into that though. Most of the guys I've ever trained with were super, super, super cool. The real high level guys that I had trained with were always had a good sense of humor. I'll put it to you that way. So, but I mean, those were the guys that, you know, that I wasn't any real threat to when I was younger, and they helped me a lot. I'll just put it to you that way. But I know that there's some boxing gyms where they just try to murk each other. And that's what a lot of guys it'll keep people out of gyms. They'll hear stories about that. But nowadays, I don't really think a lot of the gyms are doing that. At least I haven't heard of one. I mean, you'll always have one or two knuckleheads that'll show up, but there's usually somebody in there that's going to put a stop to that pretty quickly. That's asking, really want to get a late 70s, early 80s Jeep or Jap sport bike under 900 cc's. Recommendations. I've been looking at KZ 900 or even 600. Okay, so here's the thing. Yeah, KZ 900, KZ 1000 would be the bike I would look at if you're looking for that vintage. That'd be like a 1980. But my favorite of all of those, I love the Cowies, but GS 1100, man, that's the predecessor to all the GSXR stuff. And that is what was huge in drag racing back in the day. GS 1100 and KZ 1000 and KZ 900s were big into that. The only thing that I would be a little leery of with the older iron is just that. Make sure that the frame is in really good shape. That's the most important thing. Aside from that, 80s sport bikes, okay, and the Z bikes, the GS 1000, things like that. Those are perimeter steel frames. You know, I'd rather see you get something aluminum. But early 80s, yeah, GPZ, any of the GPZ bikes, GPZ 900 would be the one you're looking for, but it's gonna be pricey to find a nice one. Mark, I always try to beat myself up in the mirror. Same. Oh, Mark, it may be breaking loose more because you've got better scavenging now. Than you did with the other exhaust. The other thing is glass packs. The glass pack is just a straight through style muffler. It's just a big resonator is all it is. But it could be that, let me think about this. I mean, aside from, I mean, normally if there was a restriction, it's not usually all that crazy until you get up into like the upper mid range or high load levels. So, or it could just be the day. It could be, but no, the glass packs aren't actually half bad. I mean, again, the only thing separating a glass pack from a resonator is typically just the outward diameter of the thing. Like I said, I fought pro and trained with all levels, but boxing gyms are not my cup of tea. I always try to take people's heads off till you kick them. Well, and that's the other thing too. A lot of times, and that happened rarely. I mean, and that's the thing. I mean, when I trained with some of the higher level guys, they were usually really good. One of my favorite quotes is one of the guys that I was not sparring with him. There was another guy that wanted to spar with him. This is when you know there's a big difference in skill sets. And I think he got this maybe from somebody else, but he was telling the guy, he goes, man, he wasn't feeling his best that day, but he was legit fairly skilled guy. Anyway, he said something to the effect, yeah, my reflexes don't feel right. And the other guy goes, he took that as the guy's reflex. The guy that he was talking to that said it wouldn't be able to check or parry parry jabs or anything like that. He goes, no, I'm afraid that I won't be able to pull it. Like, in other words, he'll go throw a check hook, and instead of slowing it, he may just end up turning on it right when he sees the. Anyway, it was kind of interesting the way he was describing it. I ended up sparring with him. He was a really good guy. But in fact, that's one of the guys that was helping me to get better with my hooks and with my check hooks. So when you see me and I'm hitting the bag and you'll see me turn a certain way and for that shovel hook, that's one of the guys that helped me to develop that. And that shovel hook was a jab, low jab. That one was low jab. It'd be low jab, step, and throwing a garbage right straight just to have my hand up, and then come back in with the shovel hook, and that would be as long as the guy bit on what looked like a right, or in my case, a left straight low with the right shovel hook, the guy he wouldn't see it coming. That's what I got caught with very lightly in training. And I asked him, you got to show me that combo. He did, and it works. It worked for me anyway. But I never went pro. Always wanted to. Always thought that, but I always thought that I would end up backing out, though. And not my thing was I just didn't want to get hit, punched in the head. I'd seen too many really tough guys eat, because a lot of the mentality, especially back then, is you'd have to really eat a lot of shots, and they didn't. Some of the gyms weren't really. They were more offensive and building on toughness and just some real antiquated stuff. That was early on, and I didn't want anything to do with that. But I saw what happens to guys after about 4 or 5 years of training like that, and it's not pretty in boxing, because again, and in boxing, you end up, especially some of the gyms that I didn't spend a lot of time in, but I did spend some time in. They were serious. It was like a wrestling environment. It's the mentality was you fight like you train, and you train like you fight. And these guys would try to kill each other. The place that shut down over here wasn't like that. It was very specific about technique, and would go hard, but they wouldn't let the guys go more than a few rounds, and that was it. They wouldn't let the kids go in there and try to kill each other. But yeah, I don't know. There's part of it I miss, and there's part of it I'm kind of glad I don't mess with it as much anymore. But do like Muay Thai, though. I had a couple of buddies that were big into that. Again, it's been years ago. So one dude, I swear he had shins. You could freaking use his shin as a ball, but he wouldn't feel it. So, that's also the guy that gave me my first leg kick. Figured out real quick. I didn't want to have shit to do with that. That was, oh God, that would have been in the early 2000s. Like, man, I want to check it out. So why are you kicking him in the legs? What's up with that? Crack. Oh. But he taught me how to throw a leg kick. Now I'm saying, Amy, do you have any idea why my serviceability control light comes on for a couple of minutes under hard acceleration? No check engine light comes on. Yes. Check to make sure that you do not have a frayed. Oh, please. Okay, so this is a driver's side speed wheel speed sensor. Back also in that area, you've got the cables for the shocks. But check to make sure that you don't have any frayed wires anywhere in that general vicinity. It's usually in the rear. And it could happen under hard acceleration. You've got some wires that separate, and then they're not really like loaded up or stressed or G-forces or anything else like that. You may also see it flicker every once in a while. It's one of the most frustrating things about the Challengers and the Chargers, but Challengers are the big culprit for that. Gids is in. What's up, man? Sovereign, I have never been to Herman's Jiu-Jitsu school. Never have. Never have. Hard Rock is in. EB, hello. No, but I have trained with some guys that had fought overseas when I lived in Northern California. But I just learned takedown defense. That was the main thing for me. But these were guys that fought and trained with the guys in Pride. They K1. Again, I'm showing my age here because this is years back. I haven't fooled with it in forever. Sovereign Jiu-Jitsu, yes. Marco is saying, just got my nose reconstructed with my rib. From what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah, there's God, man, some of those guys in the more hardcore, and it was a point of pride for a lot of these guys, but they were getting, I mean, they would piece each other up. And that's how they did it back then, though. And they used the small gloves too, man, 10 ounce. CJ is in. Oh, Hard Rock. Yeah. Supercharged C8. Pretty nasty. CJ is saying, imagine if Ford made a V10 version of the Coyote. I tell you what, the more time I spend with the Coyote, I have to admit this to you guys, the more time I spend with the Coyote, the more frustrated I get with Dodge. I understand everybody, Hemi. But what frustrates me, fellas, is that we were supposed to have that 5.5 liter 4-valve V8, whatever was rumored at the time. We were supposed to have had that. And I guess it was the Giulia platform wouldn't accept it, and the Ghibli platform, I think, is what they were going to use it with. And that was supposed, the OG Demon was supposed to be the end of the LX platform. And coming into 2019 and 2020, that's when we were supposed to have all the new stuff. And it's one of those kind of a thing that died on the vine. And it would have been pretty slick too if they would have the formula is in the recipe, I should say, it's out there. It's not that hard to copy. 4 valves, variable cam timing, fuel injected, dual fuel system. You don't even have to have a dual fuel system to make it really work. You're a little bit limited on compression ratio if you don't, though. Let's say it comes in at like an 11-to-1 motor instead of 12-to-1 like the Coyote. Okay. but it would have had just all the potential in the world to be just a garden variety badass, right? Like, and we kept the Hemi, and I guess for me, I'm not hating on it, right? But we had the Hellcat, we had the Demon, a supercharged 5.5 liter 4-valve engine wouldn't make 700 horsepower or 800 horsepower, depending on boost levels. I mean, you're looking more of an order of magnitude of 775 or 875 boost for boost. That's just life, fellas. I mean, the minimum of 10% better head flow, 4 versus 2 valve. It doesn't matter how big the intake valve is. Plus, you don't have all of the issues, the inherent flaws that that a 2-valve system has, especially one like a Hemi. So, I'm frustrated with Mopar because here we are, 2024, Ford is not looking at any stopping of the Coyote. And we've already been receiving reports of failures with, we're already seeing reports of failures with the Hurricane, and it's like, guys, come on, man, seriously, y'all can't, you're not allowed to screw this up, but here we are, we screwed up things. So, I feel like if the course would have been carried through, we'd be in a lot better shape. Now, there are so many other mitigating factors to this. I mean, international pressures that, you're going to use that 3-liter inline 6 for a lot of different platforms. All you're doing is trying to make a power number. That's it. It doesn't matter the number of cylinders or anything like that. But guys, let me just tell you this. I have put out the offer to put Whitey up against any like Ram with the standard output inline 6. I'm still trying to figure out a way to pick a race with one. I don't care if my truck loses. I want to see by how much the truck wins, as a matter of fact, because Whitey's fast, man. I mean, it's a pickup truck, right? I mean, it's pickup truck fast, but put premium in that the Hurricane 6, I'll put corn in my truck, and they're both in the best fueling position they can be in. Line them up. Let's see what happens. And again, I wouldn't take it personally. It's collecting data as far as I'm concerned. Siren said, dual overhead cam Hemi just didn't come to fruition. True that. Skids, Carlos Tavares and company is why the 4-valve V8 never came to pass. And maybe. It just sucks that it didn't. BB's asking, I think you owned a Viper or two, technically 3, yes, right? Did you ever get behind the wheel of the old SRT 10 truck? Yes, a 6-speed variant of it. So I've also owned 2 Lightnings, and that's one of the vehicles that I should have never sold. Oh my God. Anyway, back in those days, it was the Viper truck versus the Lightnings. And the way that it would work was like this. Warmed over Lightning versus warmed over Viper truck. The Lightning would get out on the Viper truck, and the Viper truck would run around it on the big end. It's usually how it would work out. Depending on how much real estate there was. The Viper truck was not going to hang with a Lightning in the 8th mile, so it wasn't even, but it was still a fun race. In the 1/4 mile, it depended on how well breathed upon the Lightning was. As it would get out on the Viper truck, it would just run out of breath with the blower that it had. Now, this is stock blower stuff. This isn't like a Kenny Bell or the Auto Rotor. Who made the Auto Rotor? Anyway, the Swedish company. Anyway, it wasn't anything like that. It was just, you got a stock blower and you pulleyed it up and you had somebody with anyway, yes, I did a 6-speed regular cab short bed and it was a lot of fun. Fun truck. Sam saying so far the 5.7 is still available on the Durango. That is my understanding. CJ, the 427. Oh, this thing's already throwing ads in. The 427 single overhead cam Camry V8 demolished the 426 Hemi V8 in drag racing back in the 60s. It had its fans, that's for sure. There wasn't a lot. The Hemi was good. I mean, it wasn't the best. If you wanted to go out and win races, big block Chevy is really the way to go. And you got to remember the Mark IV big block. This is what a lot of people don't realize. And this is funny to me in a way, but Mark IV big block was designed to dethrone the Hemi, and people don't, it's like the hieroglyphics that people just can't or don't like to read. So if you're familiar with any of the big block Chevrolets, they're basically a canted valve head design. And they've got a funky valve train geometry, but it is what it is. I mean, it's a canted valve design. They are easier to manufacture, though, far easier than the Hemi, and it's everything that the ball stud Hemi was going to be. So if you ever see a ball stud Hemi, it's kind of hard to distinguish it from, I mean, it's different, but it's not, it's the same idea. It's just a canted valve. It's like a Poly 318. It's a canted valve as opposed to a shotgun head. Now, what does that mean? Well, a shotgun head means that if you're looking at the engine from the very top, the valves are running horizontally, which is to say that air comes in, air goes out, right? So in, out. Think of it like that. Usually an Appendistar cylinder or combustion chamber design. Canted valve just turns that, usually let's say it's on a 45 just to make it easy. And then inline runs parallel with the crank. The valves run literally parallel with the crankshaft. The reason why you would do, like, what's the difference? Like, why does the circle care where the valve is? It doesn't. It's how the valve train is designed. If you turn that valve train 90 degrees, you can have a Pentastar style roof and you have a rail that can then actuate the valve. And it's a lot easier to get a lot of air into the chamber like that. If you turn everything sideways, you've got to run ball and stud rockers, or you run some kind of a pivoting rocker, but it's not have the ability because of the geometry of the system. Canted valve, you can kind of get away with some things. It's a little bit funky, but it works. And anyway, it is what it is. And the messed up thing about it is if you have, Mark IV, Mark V, Mark VI big block Chevrolet with really good flowing heads, you're going to have hell if you're playing with a Hemi. And you got to remember that 426 is an old ass design. I mean, old. It's not. A lot of people. Oh, it's the Hemi. Yeah, it was the first. I mean, it was really the first high performance from the factory, like high performance, like modern era style high performance from the factory. It was hitting the scene in drag cars and Savoys in 1964. It predates everything from every other manufacturer in terms of actual head flow type numbers. Oh, yeah, that the 427 aluminum block. Well, that's the L88, the true L88. And yeah, L88 427s and L78 396s. Were basically, it didn't take much to drag big power out of those things. Somersay got hit with a TikTok advert. Ugh, gross. Like in the 6-speed and the 03 to 05 diesel Rams. What was the year of the one that I drove? It was later than that. Had a work truck that had the Cummins in a what was it, a 5-speed or a 6-speed in that thing? I can't remember. I'm saying the tires, the handshaker gets tiresome in traffic, I bet. Eric is in. Good to see you, man. Yeah, what the hell, man? It's the blue Dodge. I mean, it wasn't fast, but it would definitely pull pretty good on the highway. But it's what you expect when you've got, all the powers. But yeah, no, the old school stuff, man, it's kind of crazy. The way engines are designed now, the way that they make power is just worlds different than how it used to be back then. And, quite honestly, anybody that is being honest with themselves will tell you that, look, I mean, big blocks are great, but you run into too many problems with big blocks. That's why when everybody's younger, everybody's a big block guy, right? Because that's where the big numbers come from. But there are realities that come with big block life. Number one is cooling problems. My God, get ready. If you built anything worth actually talking about, you're going to have cooling problems if you're going to be driving that thing legit on the street, like it is a legit ass street car. They take up a lot of room. Putting the right kind of exhaust on them is hard because it requires a lot of exhaust flow. And how you going to package that in an area that's already being eaten up in terms of, real estate by an engine. And really with, more modern cylinder heads, I mean, we're talking SBC, SBF, even Mopar stuff. It's really difficult to beat, a 410 or 415 cubic inch stroker small block with really good heads and what is now an exceptional intake manifold. I mean, you're making big block power with, a small block sizing, but you also have small block cooling you can play with too. So love the old school stuff though. It does have its limitations, and a lot of their limitations lie in the transmissions that they use. Yeah, I get it. Turbo 400, C4, C6s, 727s, 904s, all of that. Yeah, you can make them really fast. They make for great drag race transmissions, but for modern street use, probably not the best at all. Not even close. Definitely not good. If you could bolt up like an HP 70 or an HP 90 to the back of a 440, I'm sure that Chevy guys have got this figured out with, significant overdrive, like multi-gear transmissions. It would be transformative for those packages. Let's see. Yeah, everybody say what's up to Eric. He is in. Oh, Skits, yeah, the Scat can get any of the late 60s muscle cars stock for stock. Maybe the L88 Corvette can keep up. Well, depends on what tires on the back of that L88 Corvette because, yeah, the L88, a real legit L88 was one of the few engines that was very underrated. The L88 was easily 100 horsepower stronger than the Hemi, which is to say, nobody likes to hear that the Hemi didn't make advertised power, but the Hemi didn't make advertised power. The 440 didn't make advertised power either, by the way. But the L88 is a straight up just absolute monster. Eric saying the classic Mopar cars. Yeah, love the classic Mopar. From a visual, this is where Dodge always wins the argument. It's the interiors and the exteriors. The styling of the thing, the style out of the interiors. Dodge always did it right. You cannot compare a Chevelle to a Dodge, like a Charger. On the interior side, it just doesn't stack up. Galaxies were pretty nice, don't get me wrong, but they just from the aesthetic, the feel, the fit, and all of that, Dodge, in my opinion, at least in my experience, has always been top of the mark. It's just that the execution sucked. Finding out things haven't changed too much. Skid saying, big block Chevy love wintertime. Yeah, they do. Wintertime is big block time. Which also means no traction. Eric's liking the old school stuff for sure. Oh, Sam with the transmissions. Yeah, maybe it was a 6-speed that I was driving. It's been years ago. Oh, any of the big blocks like winter because they run normal temperatures in the winter. Then it was G56. Yeah, it was a 6-speed. I was going to say they do a lot of the TH400 with gear vendors with big block applications. Yep, the Turbo 400 with the gear vendors is not bad. I mean, it's a 4-speed. Nobody's going to split gears, and nobody's going to do that. And you can just put it on automatic. You can just go 1, 2, 3, and then above, I forget what it is, above certain mile per hour or something like that, output shaft speed, it'll shift into overdrive. I think that's programmable now. Let's see. Jeremy said, keep up the great work, man. I love listening to the show. Thank you very much, Jeremy. Appreciate the kind words. American Motors, Eric, built some really cool cars. It's a shame that they didn't really invest in the muscle car era, but they had a couple of pretty cool. Oh, saying, yeah, talking about the gear vendor stuff in the first gen. In fact, Sierra, if I wouldn't have sold that truck, was going to get either a gear vendor's overdrive or it was going to get re-geared. It needed a little bit longer legs. But yeah, it's the transmission technology is just, I mean, it cannot be understated how important it is. Now, with that being said, though, more is not always better. And I just wrapped it up too, and I can nitpick this to no end, but I will say this: I have wrapped up the tuning on the transmission tune. I need to validate. Sport mode now that I'm thinking about it. Anyway, pretty much wrapped up tuning with the F-150. And one of the issues that I run into is with a 10-speed transmission, you kind of get the idea. Like people go, I like that it does the 1 to 3 skip shift, talking about the F-150 or any of the 10-speed trans protocols that look for that skip shift. I've programmed all of that stuff out with mine. It's really, really, really good. I could go into that tune and nitpick, take 10% of, in other words, I can take maybe, 2 miles an hour of, mile per hour out of one area and add a couple more here and there. It is chasing a dragon when you start getting into these lots of transmission gear, lots of gear transmissions. mine shifts consecutively. I don't have it bouncing like going from first to third and then, fifth to seventh or anything like that. But there's 3 different protocols that you're up against. You've got upshift. Okay. That's pretty simple to figure out, pretty simple to walk through. Downshift. Okay. Well, that's pretty easy to figure out too. Upshift is when it shifts up into the next gear. Downshift is when it shifts down into the next gear. But those are power on scenarios. That means you're in the throttle, and more throttle means more RPM before your next gear. Less means less. Same with the downshift tables. More downshift, more pedal gets you more further down into the next gear up to where you run out of RPM when it hits, right? There's a third, and that third, well, technically there's a fourth, but that one's kind of an irrelevant one. It is, but it's not. It's the was it the brake? Anyway, that it's the coast down tables. And I say, well, what's coast down? Coast down is when you are completely off the throttle and you are coasting. I thought I was going to lose my mind with the coast down table. I ended up blending. That's what took me the longest to get, I don't want to say sorted out the right way, but it's what ends up happening is that you always have to remember the coast down table. If you make any changes to your upshift, you're going to want to maybe look at your downshift tables. Certainly vice versa. You raise anything in the downshift tables, your ass had better be right next after that looking at your upshift tables. But you're going to forget about your coast down. And what will happen is you'll take your foot off the gas on coast down, and let's say the transmission is in 7th gear and you're coasting down. Well, if you tap the throttle and now you're looking at a power on potential downshift or upshift, it may throw it into 5th gear. So your coast down is 7th, but you haven't adjusted your throttle downshift correctly. Give it power and it drags it down. So it's just, you've got to basically, it's literally juggling those 3. And it is a pain in the ass. So anyway, I just pretty much got all of that sorted out. And well, no, I didn't pretty much get it done. It is sorted out and it's really good now, but man, you've got to be really on top of it. And the other thing about it is you don't want to try to make that kind of a transmission hold on to a gear. It pisses it off. That transmission is designed to where if you're not looking for acceleration, it needs to shift into the next gear. Holding on to a gear under partial throttle situations will actually kind of screw up your scheduling for the rest of especially if it's under light throttle. It just makes it real. What's the word I'm looking for? It sucks. I don't really know how else to say it. So when putting one of those together, it's real important that you just remember your coast down. Let me look at something real quick. Just see something. Not that. What was it? Back out. That's what it's called. Back out. What back out is have you ever been like wide open in a car in sport mode or any mode, and you get out of it and it wants to hang in that gear for a while? And it'll hang in that gear until you give it throttle or something along those lines. That's the back out table. The thing about the back out table is the lower the RPM you put in your back out table, the more it's going to want to just shift up after that. And so to give you an idea, there's all kinds of different configurations for that. Technically, there's 3 with a maximum RPM that you can play with. So anyway, that's the other one you got to look at. But that one's really not. I don't really mess with that one. I'll leave that one alone. I say that. I raised bass a little bit and didn't worry about the other ones. And then I ended up getting, I didn't like it raised, and so I dropped it back to stock. The new 10R80 is actually really good. It's not bad at all. Sam said, I really want to find a 92 D250 with a diesel. That'd be pretty sick. Skids is hanging out with Eric. From a friend of his in high school, got him a 71 Javelin. Very cool car. What's funny is those things used to be like a dime a dozen, and now they're super expensive. Yeah, love those cars too, man. Skids wishing he saw a 66 Mustang and 85 Volvo DL. Yeah, a lot of people love those things. But yeah, guys, man, I got to tell you, it's like the old school stuff. Some of the stuff I wish I still had. A couple of cars that got away that I would love to have had. I think, though, that if I would have gotten those cars, I never would have been able to experience what I was able to experience, like that Roadrunner, for example. Eric had it 69 Nova. Nice. 454 with the 4-speed. Very sweet. God, Novas are also big time expensive now. If I would have ended up getting that, if I was able to secure that Roadrunner, sapphire yellow with a center console, pretty car. Because it's yellow, but it's not really yellow. It's like a powder yellow. I just thought that car was so pretty. But that would have been one that I would have probably held on to and street raced it, and would have never really gotten into the really, really fast stuff. Sam, yeah, 87 944 turbo. Yep. Good, fun car. Real fun car. 92 single cab D250. I'll tell you what, the 944 turbo versus the Conquest is a really neat A-B type thing. The 944 is faster because it makes more power stock for stock. But the Conquest / Starion was a budget 944, and it was torquey. And that's one of the reasons why I like that car so much. That's one of the things I will say this. What I've discovered with all of this new latest super fast stuff, right, that everybody gets all worked up over. The thing that I have a problem with is that it's almost like there's no relatability for me anymore with these cars. This is coming from a guy with experience with, I'm not going to say you get bored with them, but I've been behind the wheel of a lot of 1,000 horsepower cars. They're phenomenal things to drive. They're an experience that, may only be worth it to do a handful of times in a lifetime. But that's a 1,000 horsepower by today's standard, though, right? Like, that's a stable 1,000 horsepower. And a reliable 1,000 horsepower. We're talking about the Mopars and the Hemis. And granted, that's just the way that it is. I mean, a lot of people try to, down talk Mopars, this, that, or whatever. But, and, all Gap and this other shit. Yeah, but the shit that gaps motors is also the stuff that spends a lot of time in a shop, man. I'm sorry. And they're not very fast when they're broke. But you know, one of the things that doesn't get enough love, and it won't, but it's just the cool stuff and what was considered sporting, you know, like the 944 Turbo or the Conquest, or, you know, how the Fox body stuff, any of the products from that era were great. They were fun. And it sucks that they're shit on so much, like cars that have that performance window. Again, I'm reminded of the 5.7 Hemi cars, of which I am growing more and more as time goes on a fan of those cars. Not taking anything away from the 392. And I'm not even talking about modifying the things. I'm just talking about being able to get in the car, get out there and have fun below 120 miles an hour. You know, the Hellcats are just a treat to drive, but you have to remember that you're not going to be excited to drive a Hellcat unless you're clipping at least 130 miles an hour and accelerating to that point, because it gets there pretty darn quickly. But that's the only time that thing is actually breathing and working hard. That I like the feel of a power plant when it's under load and putting in work. To me, the speed of it and all of that is practically irrelevant, because there's no difference in it for me. I'm kind of a weirdo when it comes to that. I am. So to explain where I'm coming from with this, I will use this example, and maybe this will illustrate it for you. I am having more fun with the F-150 than I did with my Hellcat. How do you explain that? It's more rewarding. It's more fun. Why? Because I can use it and play with it. I feel like I'm getting away with something, and I'm not even going barely into triple digits, if ever in that. You know, and that's why if you are looking at a car that is going to be fun, it's going to make all the same noises, it's going to do everything. The 5.7 is almost like it's a really good way to go. The 6.4, you're going to get used to that level of power. But even the 6.4 is dicey on the street. The 6.4 is get you straight to jail fast. Like throw you under the jail fast. So know that coming into that proposition. A lot of folks don't realize how fast the 6.4 is until they drive one. It's creepy how fast those cars will get to speeds like 115, 120 miles an hour. But the guys that have them will go, well, they'll have them for a couple of years, and then they want something more. And guys, don't want for more, because the more you get, the more used to it you're going to get, and then you're going to want even more still. That's been my experience anyway with it. Hang on. Why does this thing do that? Sorry, I'm having quit. Here we go. Let's see if this works. Here we go. Oh, talking skids. We had the hill. Nice. Talking about recreating the scene from Ferris Bueller. Eric is in, saying hello to Sam. 21-gallon fuel tank 944. I miss those days. You know, another car that doesn't seem to get a whole lot of love either is the 240, 280, and 260s. Those cars do not get the love from Datsun back then. Love those cars too. Sam's liking the tip end more than top end. Yep. He's saying great points. B, like riding the 400cc sport bikes. Ride them. You have to ride them like you stole them and actually get into fourth or fifth gears. 1,000 cc's can't do what it's intended to on the street. No, and that's the thing. I mean, again, with the new tires on the Z1, that thing at full lean in fourth gear, I am now wide open in fourth gear, hitting the apex. Whereas before I would be in fifth gear, but at a much lower RPM, grabbing the same amount of throttle. So completely different thing. But any more power than that, for me anyway, I really what I would do with it. Again, with my only complaint though, more power, but chill the gearing out. And if my bike had the right gear split, I would probably really be looking for more power at that point. But it's one of those types of things. I mean, if it had more power but more chill gearing, I could have the same amount of thrust, just longer. And that's more of the point. Running out of actual physical acceleration thrust because you're pinned. But you end up running out of gear mid corner is a real headache, a real pain in the ass. It's why, that sometimes sport bikes, they seem fast and the numbers that they put up are pretty fast, like 0 to 60 or quarter mile numbers. But the reality is that they'll spend half of their time, at least it feels like, trying to just accelerate out of first gear, where some of the faster bikes are, 86, 85 miles an hour up to like 94, 95 miles an hour in first gear. Ken saying it's more fun to drive a slow car fast than a fast car slow. It's more fun to drive a slow car fast because it'll surprise you every once in a while and do something sporty, than to drive a fast car normally. And and that's the other problem, is that everything becomes slow when you have a really fast car, unless you're in it, like in it. Ken saying, honestly, only drive my red eye to the track and back. I get that. Mom, hey, what's up? Saying, hey, B, do I need to change the oil in buttermilk if I've only gone 300 miles in a year? Yes. And by the way, yes, Mom did get me the shirt. Yes, you do, Mom. You need to change the oil, even though you're not driving it, and it needs to be driven. So what year is Buttermilk? Buttermilk's it's a 300 limited edition, somewhat rare car. It's when they were building the SRTs, they also had the limited edition cars. 2009, that's it. So 5.7 powered, but it's got all the bells and whistles. But yes, you do still need to change the oil. Love you, Mom. It's kids. Hey, B's mom. Let's see. Oh yeah, Kim was saying, yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too. The biggest issue that you'll run into with some of the guys, when you start getting into the faster stuff, what'll end up happening is that there's nothing worse than getting bored with something that you had a ton of passion for and a ton of, there's a lot of excitement and, you've dumped all this heart and soul into this new car purchase, so to speak. Or it's even worse if you've sunk a ton of money into your project and you have decided that now you want to take it to some next level, and you've got a guy like me going, just don't do it. Don't do it. This happened a lot with the Hellcat crews. And what would happen is they would get frustrated with your lack of enthusiasm. I need to do a video with Mom's car. We need to do that, Mom. We need to get buttermilk and put it on the channel. Some old school 300 love. And by the way, it's my mom's fault that I got into Mopars. So everybody thank Mom for getting this bald guy into Mopars. You know, I still talk about 202 YQB relatively regularly on the show. So my very first car was a Dodge 600 Turbo. Now, here's the funny thing about it. It's an ES platform Mopar. Leading up to that, you know, that was Dodge's first foray into what would have been their like the Omni, the GLH, that would have incorporated the Daytona. There was a lot of cars that worked off of that, either that engine platform, or they would work off of that actual body platform, which was the ES platform. And the cool thing about that car is that it would have been the predecessor of any of the sedan type 4-cylinder turbo platforms that would have come if Chevrolet and Ford would have killed V8, which was well on its way. There was a lot of talk at that time about where the automotive landscape was going to take performance, and it ended up basically not in Dodge's favor, but we got really cool stuff like the Omni GLH and the Daytona and a lot of other cars. But at that time, the 600 did exist, and actually you could get a 600 with a 5-speed. But yeah, that car, interesting car to say the least. But yeah. But that's okay. So, and it was her dad that would have the Miller Lite in the truck, take us out to the oil field roads. Got to control the skid. Good times. That was an 84 D100 with the 225 6-cylinder. Ooh. So, yep. Gotta blame Mom. You're still on. I love you, Mom. Let's see. Sovereign's hanging out with Eric. Mom's saying, okay, video on the 300. Sam with 06 E320. Those things were practically indestructible. She's saying, my mom would be watching my show too. That's cool. Woohoo. Oh, Sovereign saying Dodge recently put up an advertisement for the Dodge Charger. I had to leave a comment on it. Said, we've enjoyed having cake for so long, and now we're being served rice cakes. Man, I tell you what, here's the sad thing about it. There's no, how do I put this? There is absolutely no love right now from anybody for any of the Chargers that we've seen. Mopar Official on their Instagram put out what was it? It was some picture. I only saw the picture. I didn't really read the captions. I wasn't that interested in it anyway, because I don't know if it's one of the EVs. I don't know which one it is, but it is hideous to look at. It is just, it's like cringe on wheels. I can't look at it and feel like I want to go out and purchase that vehicle. And again, it could be amazing. That's the problem. We could be looking at the next coming of this new generation of badass muscle cars. Maybe I don't. I'm not gonna give judgment just yet. But what I will say is, I can't, for the life of me, envision a world where something that like that I saw, that car, that one right there, I don't see it doing all that great. There's already a lot of, it looks like a flipping rental car. Skids had the Plymouth Turismo. Nice. Eric saying Dodge's going to have to come back with a V8. There's a lot of folks that are saying that now. And there's two things here in play. I'm hoping that the six-cylinder, I say hope. I don't want to waste hope on this, but let's say the six-cylinder lives up to the hype and it's badass. You can make an inline six sound amazing. So the V8 rumble gives way to the shrill, just the shriek of an inline six. If they do it right, it'll sound good. Okay. But this is America last I checked. And in the good old US of A, we do like ourselves some V8. That's why I bought my Ford. And that's the other thing. Why is it? Okay, let's talk about this. This is the elephant in the room, okay? And this is not flattering if you're a six-cylinder turbo fan. Why is it that all of them have problems of some kind that seem to be unreconcilable problems? Let me put it to you like this. EcoBoost. All kinds of problems leading up until like what is now a modern era, I guess. The 2.7 seems to be extremely rock solid, though. And if we're being honest, it might actually be the engine to get if you're looking at a six-cylinder turbo. They come on real hard down low. They make plenty of power, whatever, 300 plus horsepower, 400 and something pound-feet of torque. Kind of hard to argue with that. And I hate to say it, but the 3.5, I didn't like how that vehicle drove. Just me. But look at what happened to Toyota. They're having all kinds of engine issues. And again, we've already heard of some issues with the Hurricane 6. We know that it doesn't have an oil dipstick. We already feel like that's weird. I think that the oil filter placement is really funky on that thing. I don't know if it's a perceived problem or not, but it sits right on top of a cross member. I don't even know if you can get a filter socket underneath it, but you can bet your ass that it's going to make a complete mess when you go to change the oil in the thing. You're going to have to make your own like plastic funnel, get the cooking plastic, and just kind of fold it up in there. When you go to loose, it's just, oh God, what a mess. Anyway, that's kind of beside the point, but I guess where I'm going with this is, why do they always have problems? Teething problems. I keep hearing about, it's just development problems. Okay, everybody's going to have them? Like, real? You mean it? Hold up. Straight up, real talk. If you are a manufacturer and you're building the engines and you've heard that other manufacturers building like engines have had the same problems, wouldn't you do some research and try to figure out what it was that they didn't get right? Maybe there was an oversight or something that because you're in uncharted waters, you just didn't know would be a problem. And so you fix those problems so that you don't have you recognize that as a problem and you fix that so that you don't have that as a problem later. Can you do that? Is that cool? It floors me that these guys have those kind of issues. Mom saying, love you too, son. Love you, Mom. Eric is in. Good evening, Dana. It's good saying they had an orange Charger on Insta the other day. Look gay. I tell you what, I'm just not a fan of the car. It doesn't look good. It doesn't have, there's nothing that is drawing my eye to it. Look, and I'm not asking this thing to look like a, it doesn't have to be like De Tomaso Pantera sexy, but my God, man. I mean, dude, can you have it not like it looks like something that somebody at a rental car fleet said, I need something that is going to be very plain, very easy, very cheap to manufacture. And they come back with this slab-sided looking thing that's not even a good look. Like you can do slab-sided and make it look great. This looks bad. And have y'all picked up on the wheel gap on this thing? Is the car they had shown the picture of, is that a 4-wheel drive version of the car? Because it sits like, what's up with the elevation on this thing? It's not well done. It's not good looking, and it's not, you just don't get that, yes, score. You don't get that with the look of that thing. Yeah, Eric's touched on what we were talking about earlier. Yep, having all kinds of problems with the Hurricane. Saying the E320 CDI would get to 60 faster than the E5 for the same year. Sad to say, but I may have proven it once or twice. Yeah, I get it. Oh, I was going to say from the back, the new Charger looks a lot like the 13-14 Charger. Yes, it does. It looks like a less well-executed version of it. At least the ones that I'm seeing. We're not even seeing the Banshee or whatever else it is. Eric's saying, yeah, even the Toyota's having problems. They're having big problems. So why can't they make a twin-turbo 6? Think about that. The only one that's working, well, Ford's got the 2 that are working, but you get the idea here that look at the headaches the 3.5 went through, and the 2.7. The 2.7 was built as a, I mean, that thing is a beast the way that it's put together. Skids, yep. Toyota's going through some stuff right now, man. Thank you, Eric. Sam saying they're trying to make diesel numbers on blocks not strong enough. That is true. And that's the big argument for the Hurricane. This is the funny thing. They're saying, well, look, the Hurricane was built as a boosted engine platform, meaning webbing in the block, and just the sheer beef of the thing is designed to handle the type of cylinder pressures that you're going to see with one of those types of engines. The high cylinder pressure issues and all that, those have been addressed. But the problem is they really haven't. You can't have any kind of funky, weird failure on a production engine like that. You're just not allowed to. Like, you can't say, oh, it's just teething problems. You can't do that. It's not, that doesn't fly anymore. Skids, yeah, the 4-liter NA 4Runners were good. The 4-liter Jeeps were good too. He's asking, how do you stand on 6.1 versus 6.4 Chally, specifically for a manual car? Pick whichever one you like more, man. There's some performance that separates the two, but don't get lost in that sauce. If you find a 6.1 with a 6-speed and you love the way that it looks and you drive it and you love the way that it drives, pick that car. This is not a time between 6.1 and 6.4 to don't be a size queen when it comes to the power numbers of those things. It will not change how the car drives realistically. I know that sounds kind of weird to hear, but I've driven all of them, and I've never come away from driving a 6-speed 6.1 car and had any level of disappointment with it. Nor, I'll even add to that, nor have I ever been disappointed with a NAG 161. It does not make the same power that the 6.4 does. Okay. So what? It's a pretty car. Plus, it's a simpler combination. Change oil in the thing, and you're never going to have a problem with it. So, just something to enjoy. You're just going to have something to have fun with. You like the sound of it. It's not a race car, lights the tires up whenever you want it to. Both of them are fantastic, but, either one is going to be a lot of fun. If you're looking to, if you're buying it as a project vehicle, man, if I'm being perfectly honest, I would say leave both of them naturally aspirated. You can really, so the 6.4, I'll put it to you like this. The 6.4 with, a moderate amount of boost it'll go from about 425 horse to about 5. This is on a Mustang dyno. A real healthy 6.4. Let me preface this. Scratch that. Bone stock, we won't talk about too. Bone stock 6.4 makes about 400 to the rear wheels on a Mustang dyno, Mustang eddy current dyno. With a blower on it, it'll make, I don't know, pick a number, it sounds good, 535, 550, whatever. Call it 525 if you want. There's not enough that separates that number for me. And that's the thing that might be frustrating in a way, is that I'm not looking for 525. I'm looking for 600, right? And so you're only picking up, say, 100 horsepower to the rear wheels. It sounds like a lot, but it only sounds like a lot if you're running like a Pro Charger or something like that. It does feel faster on the big end, but it doesn't feel any different when you're driving the thing. So if it's my money, I'd leave it naturally aspirated, have it sound good, have it look clean under the hood, and you'll like it for a long time. No, sorry, that's the orange Charger I dropped the rice cake on. Yeah, I don't know. There are no styling cues on that car, Sovereign. I have no idea. It would look better if it looked completely different. That's where I stand on that thing. It's like in the old 4Runners with the V8s. I like all of them. All of the Chargers are good. My E63, that car, I mean, that's what ended up becoming the Charger. So Sam saying it needs to be a cast block, not aluminum. There's a lot of people that are saying that about the Hurricane, bro. I don't know. Eric's saying, Eric's hanging out with Sovereign. Talking about losing low pressure and snapping crankshafts in half. Oh, God. Skid asking, if you want to mod your Challenger, can the 6.1 like the 5.7 take to mods better than the 6.4? I mean, yes and no. It's a simpler engine. The heads are pretty good. The cam's actually not that bad either in that car. A quarter horse with a really decent intake manifold. Again, it's a street car, so you're not going to run more than about 7 or 8 pounds of boost anyway. If you try to cheat it with 10, it's like you're not getting enough, to try to cheat it from 8 to 10. So the 6.4 takes to mods just fine. That's the other thing. They're limited. Tell you what, you're more limited by the transmission in the 6.4 than you really are the 6.4 itself. That early on, guys just didn't know how to tune them. But Sam saying powder forged crankshaft, lots of rotating mass might solve the problem, and very high compression. I tell you what, man, I'm for any of the newer vehicles that are out there, I'm having a real hard time. I understand how you can have the weight of the entire, the corporate juggernaut that is Stellantis blowing your sails and you don't have this thing sorted out. I don't know. They did not consult me, my friends. I did not make it to that engineering powwow. But guys, with that, I am going to need to wrap it up. We're coming up on an hour and a half. Oh, man, how time flies when you're having fun. Guys, I want to thank each and every one of y'all for hanging out with me. Thank you, Mom, for dropping by. Listen, would not do this without you. Love each and every one of you. Guys, get out there and do something cool for somebody. Chances are they need it way more than you know. And with that, that's right. Oh, wait, Skids had one more question. That's another thing I was curious about the 6.4s. Are you better off getting the 6-speed if you want to throw a blower on it? Sort of. You're going to run into fuel quality issues if you try to push it past about 550 anyway. That's what having 11-to-1 compression, but no port plus direct injection like the Coyote has. So, probably wouldn't try to take it. They both handle the power okay, but the Tremec would do a much better job if you're beating on it. But with that, guys, y'all have a great one. We'll catch you later. Adios.